Hey, first grade. Welcome to your second social emotional learning lesson. In these lessons, we talk about different strategies that we can use to understand our own emotions and also understand other people's emotions. It helps us maintain positive relationships with ourselves and with other people. So, last week we talked about, does anyone remember what did we talk about last week? You're right. Our story was about two children who didn't know anything about two new students in their school. What was the strategy that they used to get to know those two new students? You're right. They just talked to them and got to know them. They saw that they had a bunch of things in common. Today, we're going to talk about what it's like when people you know don't have things in common with you. That's called diversity. What is it called? Diversity, you're right. Is it okay for people to be different than you? It sure is. Is it okay for people to think differently than you? What about feel differently than you? For sure. These differences are what makes people unique or interesting. So today we're going to talk about what it's like when people that you know have different interests than you. Our story today is called The Telescope. It's about a child who doesn't understand why a classmate likes a certain thing that he finds to be kind of boring. Hmm. What strategy do you think he can use to get to know this classmate that's different than him? He can try talking to her. I wonder if he'll use that strategy. Let's see. So as you can see, I'm wearing my favorite cozy sweater. If you want to pause the video here and go wear your favorite sweater with me, you can go do that. So friends, while I'm reading, I want you to pay attention to how the characters react to each other's differences. Our story is called The Telescope. Oops, I'm blocking it. Okay, class, called Kenny's teacher. I want each of you to answer the question, what was the best part of your weekend? Write your answer in your journal and then share it with your buddy. Hey, we have a writing journal. This week, Kenny's buddy was Maddie. Maddie and her twin brother Max were new in the class, and all Kenny knew about her was that she liked reading science books and had a lot of strange things in her backpack, like a magnifying glass and binoculars. So, friends, this is kind of like what a binocular is. You hold it up to your eye and you can see things from far away. Oops. When it was time to share their answers, Kenny glanced over and saw that Maddie had written a lot in her journal. You can go first, he offered. I had the best weekend, Maddie said excitedly. My family went to the new space exhibit at the Science Center, and I got to feel a piece of meteorite that actually crashed into the Earth. I even got this mini telescope, she added, pulling it out from her desk. Do you want to see it? Does he look excited to use her telescope? Hmm. We should probably just finish, said Kenny. He wasn't very interested in telescopes or space or hearing about telescopes or space. Oh, okay, said Maddie quietly. So, what was the best part of your weekend? Kenny told her about playing with his new video game. Maddie asked a lot of questions about the game and what he liked about it. Hmm. Did Kenny ask Maddie a lot of questions about space and telescopes? Did Maddie ask him a lot of questions about what he did over the weekend? She did. Friends, do you think that means that Maddie was being kind and interested in what Kenny had to say? Was Kenny interested in what Maddie had to say? Hmm, that doesn't show a whole lot of respect or kindness. Let's keep reading. I've never played with any video games, said Maddie, but it sounds like fun. As the class finished and put their papers away, Maddie leaned over to Kenny and whispered, "Do you want to sit together at lunch today?" Kenny really didn't want to hear any more about the space exhibit. He wanted to sit with his friends who liked video games and tell them about his new game. "Maybe another day," he answered. Is it okay that Kenny didn't want to sit with Maddie today? Of course. Was he being polite about it? Yeah, it's not like he said, "Psh, I don't want to sit with you." He said maybe another day, which was definitely showing kindness. But how do you think his attitude is? I don't think he has the best attitude either. Let's see if it changes. Later on the playground, Kenny walked over to talk to Max. Maddie was sitting with him, looking through her telescope. That looks so boring, he thought. "Look, Kenny," Maddie called, pointing toward the sky. "You can see the moon right now. Do you want to look at it through my telescope?" "No, that's okay," said Kenny. "I just wanted to ask Max if he was finished with my book that he borrowed." Max had forgotten to bring Kenny's book again, so he asked Kenny to come over after school so he could return it. That afternoon, Kenny walked home with Max and Maddie. When they got to their house, Max went to his room to look for the book. "This could take a while," said Maddie. "His room is a mess. Let's go find something to do while we wait." Kenny just wanted to go home, but he followed her down the hall anyway. When they walked into Maddie's room, Kenny could hardly believe his eyes. It was like going inside a planetarium. There were stars and moons hanging from the ceiling, and a huge picture of the solar system painted on the wall. "This is so cool!" he exclaimed. "I like it," agreed Maddie, "but wait until you see it in the dark." Maddie shut her curtains and turned off the lights. Everything glowed in the dark. "Wow!" said Kenny, pointing at the solar system. "What's this really big planet?" "That's Jupiter," answered Maddie. "It has a lot of storms, and that red spot on it is a huge hurricane." "Cool," said Kenny. "I have a video game called Space Explorers, and Jupiter is at level 5, but I can't ever get past level 4, so I never play it anymore." Do you think Kenny's attitude is changing? What is he realizing? Hmm, maybe he and Maddie have something in common after all. Then Kenny stepped a little closer. "Hey, what is this ring of stuff floating next to Jupiter?" "That's the asteroid belt," Maddie explained. "It's mostly chunks of rocks and ice, and it orbits around the sun too, in between Mars and Jupiter." Kenny threw his hands up in the air. "No wonder I can't get past level 4 in my game. Every time I try to fly from Mars to Jupiter, my spaceship crashes into things. It must be hitting rocks in the asteroid belt." "You're probably right," Maddie agreed. "But I'll bet you could fly over it to make it to level 5. Just then, Max came in to give Kenny his book. Kenny thanked him and then picked up his backpack to go home. "Hey," said Maddie, "do you want to stay for dinner? We could go outside afterwards and try my new telescope in the dark. There aren't any clouds, so we could probably see a lot of stars." Kenny smiled at her. "That sounds like fun. I'll call my parents and ask them." After dinner, the kids went outside and took turns looking through the telescope. Maddie showed them how some stars made pictures in the sky called constellations. Kenny decided that this wasn't so boring after all. "Do you two want to come to my house tomorrow and play Space Explorer?" he asked. "I'll bet we could be a really good team." "Sure," answered Maddie. "Maybe you could teach me how to play some other video games too." Kenny agreed, and the kids spent the rest of the evening looking for planets and stars in the glittering night sky. The end. Did Kenny's attitude change towards the end of the story? Why do you say that? I heard some really cool ideas. I agree with you. His attitude definitely changed towards the end. In the beginning, did he think that he and Maddie had anything in common? What about towards the end? Did he think they had stuff in common? Yeah. He immediately judged in the beginning, ugh, Maddie's interests are so boring. But once he got to know her and talk to her some more, he realized, wait, this stuff is actually kind of cool. Thank you for listening to my story. Right now, you're going to complete the independent practice that's in the next slide. Bye, everybody.